orange quills rained down around a hunter as he looked up to see an elder dragon-like creature in the tree ahead of him. A walking enigma given form. A mystery made flesh. The commander of light and darkness. The wyvern of the stars and butterfly princess. Rage began with an ominous echo to his voice as the dragon leapt down from the tree, but confusion then leaked into the host's voice, before an echoing "wow" was heard as the dragon now had a blush, a tiara, and butterfly wings on its back. Ruby and Summer both had stars in their eyes as they observed the dragon. "It's so beautiful," Summer exclaimed. "I think I'm in love." Ruby cried out in awe. "Excuse me?" Cinder questioned. "Oh, well, I mean, I'm in love with you, obviously, Cinder. But this monster just looks so beautiful and regal and cool. I so want one for myself." The younger Rose quickly explained. "It looks cool and all, but anyone else notice it's kind of got a bit of a bug look to it?" Neo asked. "I'd definitely say it has a somewhat insectoid appearance," Weiss admitted. But then, several members of the crew did a double take at the second name Rage gave to the monster. "Butterfly Princess? Is he for real?" Coco asked. I have no idea how to respond to that," Winter said. But that sounds so adorable." Ruby cooed along with Velvet. "Yeah, I really like the idea of a butterfly dragon or a pixie dragon." The bunny Faunus agreed. A Rathian was seen evacuating the area just before this new monster fired its quills out at the hunter. "Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome today because I want to talk about Australian." "Yes, indeed, I do because I think that he's, well, a bit of alright." And you know what? I thought he was a bit of alright. Like, 3 years ago now, as did Cotton. The host explained as everything went white with a flashback sound effect. The light faded to show Alia and Cotton observing a still image of the monster. "Look at him. Like, is that not weird? All the little insect wings coming out of him." The huntress pointed out in awe as, indeed, the dragon had several spikes on it that looked almost like insect wings. And the newer hunter was equally enchanted by the monster. "I don't even know if I would say weird. He's fucking awesome." The pink-haired man exclaimed in awe as he observed the beast. The pro-huntress nodded along in agreement. "He is. Really cool looking, he is," she confirmed as they continued to marvel at the creature. "Are those insects' wings on its body? So it really is an insect dragon?" Emerald asked in disbelief. "I mean, it kind of works for him. I'd say it looks pretty cool," Yang admitted. "Yeah, they add a nice touch. It's different, but it doesn't feel wrong or out of place, like it shouldn't work." Blake agreed. "But then, where were they when we saw it earlier?" Penny wondered. "Perhaps they come out when it enters an enraged state like how Anjanatha's sails or Banbaro's nose horn only come out when enraged?" Ren theorized. A greatsword-wielding hunter rushed in to fight Australian. "Why is that?" "Well, he is from the now long-gone lands of Frontier. There was a lot of good in that region. There was a lot of bad in that region. We're not here to judge it, but we are here to talk about one of the most iconic monsters from the region. This is Australian, much like Gormagala. Elder dragon in frame, of course, but of a certain mysterious origin." Rage began as the hunter fled from the monster after trading a few blows. A still image of the monster was then shown as well. Feathered with insect-like wings, dragonfly decoration, all the rage where he is from. And that from is the Ether Lake, quite the beautiful locale, and one that you wouldn't want to go wandering through unprepared. Most notable for its underground caverns of light, of lush flora and fauna. The host explained as a hunter wandered through an absolutely gorgeous underground cavern. "Ooh, another mystery class monster. This should be interesting," John said, intrigued. "I don't understand the mystery class. They already had the Elder Dragon class for monsters they can't classify, so why not just make the monsters in mystery class Elder Dragon class?" Nora asked. "Well, to be an Elder Dragon, along with being unique and being completely impossible to identify, you need to have cataclysmic, world-threatening power. Australian and Gore are certainly close, but not quite there," Razara explained. "Which is why we should be concerned about this creature." Because the last one we know of in this category is a walking extinction event that spreads a zombie plague. Just imagine how bad this one might be. Ironwood said, his mind already racing with the possibilities of the destruction this monster could cause. It's certainly possible, James, but let's not work ourselves into a panic just yet. As the saying goes, expect the worst, but hope for the best. It may be medical advice, but it's still apt for many other situations in life. Ashvin advised. But then, they saw the caverns Australian calls home. They're so beautiful. I wouldn't mind hanging a portrait of this place somewhere in our dorm. Pira said in awe. I certainly wouldn't mind a visit to observe the area. I'd have to say it's even more beautiful than the Forever Falls. Glinda agreed. The hunter continued to wander through the caverns. Now, you're probably sat there like, are we just not going to address the butterfly princess thing? The fuck, man, duh. Rage guessed everyone's thoughts as the dragon was seen with its tiara, wings, and blush again. And, that's fair enough, let's address that. Dear Australian Dash, the host began as if illustrating a letter, before everything went black. No. Okay. The greatsword wielder said with an echo to his voice. He is known as the Star Wyvern, but he also has another title, the Princess of Light and Darkness. Which is an intriguing title, is it not? Rage said with amusement in his voice as a bowgun user shot a barrel bomb and created an explosion to force Australian away from the greatsword hunter. Finally, he addresses the Butterfly Princess title. You can't just leave us hanging on that. That's something we need answers to. Adam said. Right? Like, what does it do that gives it a title like Butterfly Princess of all things? What the hell earns you that title? Crow agreed. Then a few teens raised their eyebrows at the letter portion. It sounded like he was writing a letter there. Wait. No. Don't tell me that was a My Tiny Horsey reference. Ilya groaned. Ugh. That show was too babyish for babies. Who actually watched that? Blake asked. It gets epic sometimes. Ruby, Velvet, Pira, and, surprisingly, Weiss and Cinder all cried out in defense of the show. Then, most of the teens either laughed and groaned at the second title of the monster. Princess of Light and Darkness? That sounds like it came right out of a fantasy name generator. Jan laughed. I think Bravey actually has less girly titles than that. Neo agreed. Seriously, who comes up with these names? It's like they're trying to make these monsters sound goofy and unbelievable. Emerald groaned. How dare you? Shame on all of you for mocking such a magical name. I've heard amazing names just like that in my most favorite fairy princess stories I read as a kid. Ruby defended the illustrious titles of the dragon. However, an orange glow came through the smoke as Australian emerged, surrounded by glowing orange bugs. The butterfly comes from his preferred method of combat, because he puts Xenoger's bug symbiosis to shame as he does have a good, old-fashioned partnership with star butterflies. These are perhaps even more fascinating creatures than the dragon itself. They glow and sparkle with power. They have flame within them. They are massive and their wings themselves are hard like iron. This projectile attack is him launching a butterfly with his tail, it folding in and turning into a, like, Ceregio's-esque scale impact embed into the ground. That is, and I don't mean to exaggerate here, really bloody cool. The host exclaimed as, like he said, the dragon flung the butterflies with its tail, the insects folding to become almost knife-like as they embedded into the ground. The words, really bloody cool, appearing on screen. The group was in awe when they first saw the insects. They're so beautiful, Weiss said in awe. Agreed. And their color complements Australian quite well. Although, I have to say, it does look a bit eerie and intimidating glowing in the smoke like that. Pira said. You say eerie, I say badass. That's what happens in every movie right before the action kicks off. Roman said excitedly. It certainly looks like it can hold its own. But I do have to wonder how they can help in combat. They don't look like they generate an element like the Fulgur bugs. Hazel wondered. But then, they got their answer, which left many shocked. What? Bibi, but that's impossible. If they are hard as iron, surely they must be too heavy to move, let alone fly. Penny said, practically on the verge of short-circuiting. Exactly. This is an affront to everything we know about biology. Winter agreed. And giant dragons and dinosaurs with organs that let them breathe fire and lightning aren't? John questioned. Foolish fools. Honestly, I thought we all already learned that logic is non-existent when it comes to the monsters of Katana's world. And maybe he world in general. Nora said with her arms crossed and eyes closed as if she was an old master speaking sagely wisdom. Then, their jaws hit the floor when they saw Australian launch one of the butterflies, which embedded in the ground like a knife. No way! Those are actually the butterflies it's launching. I thought they were just scales like Cerigio's, Velvet said, clinging to her own thousand-blade wyvern. But how? Like Penny said, if their wings rival the hardness of iron, they'd be too heavy to fly. So surely they'd certainly be too heavy to make useful projectiles. Ironwood questioned in disbelief. It all depends on how much force they are launched with. Cannonballs are quite heavy, but they work as projectiles because they're launched with great force. And evidently, Australian has enough force to launch them in such a manner. Ren pointed out. A researcher was seen observing markings from an Australian battle before observing a star butterfly itself. And he can use these star butterflies in a variety of ways across the variety of forms that he has. So, let's give him a quick once-over, shall we? Rage suggested, showing the still image of the monster once again. Good head. Yeah, alright. The chest. Bit of a glow. That's fine. Kind of a mess of wings on the back, but I kinda dig it. Down to the tail. Yeah, I do like the little tip he's got going on. The greatsword wielder mumbled as he listed off the dragon's features, before everything went black. Oh, is that not what you expected? I just wanted to, you know. I just want you to laugh at me, the host said with an echo to his voice, before giggling and proceeding to have a complete breakdown, cutting away to a test pattern. It is quite a majestic creature. And it is rather interesting to see a dragon of their frame without wings for once. Ashbin noted. Indeed. But it is strange to see him simply observe a monster in such a calm fashion. Usually, he's either insulting certain parts he doesn't like or speaking of the absurdity of other parts, or simply freaking out of minor details. Glinda said, right before Rage had a small breakdown. And there it is. She sighed. This got a good laugh out of the students, however. Man, is there anything that guy doesn't freak out over? Ilya asked. If he wants us to laugh, he should learn to actually be funny. The mental breakdowns are a good start, though, Cinder said. But surprisingly, Yang actually looked to the screen in sympathy. I hear you, Rage. It's just so hard getting people to laugh nowadays. People's sense of humor has seriously degraded, the blonde brawler said knowingly. No, our sense of humor haven't degraded, they've evolved. We would laugh if you told actual jokes instead of your lame puns. Coco told her, earning a wave of laughter from most of the cast. Okay, see, Yang? That's actually funny. Crow laughed. Yeah, try taking some notes. Roman agreed. You all just can't appreciate the art of puns. Yang huffed. There. You'll get them to laugh someday. Neo assured her with a hug. The researcher reached out to touch a star butterfly, but it flew away. Anyway, so, Australian and the star butterflies. Initially, then, they flutter around the fight, and he is a kind of rather lethargic physical moveset to engage you in. But eventually, he will get the star butterflies to nestle onto him, to lock up and become armor plates. This will slow him down, but it'll also make him dashed. The greatsword user began as the massive butterflies flew past the researcher and knocking her down, before the host tripped up on the word, unimaginably, everything going black. Apparently, I struggled to say the word, unimaginably, without sounding like a dog chewing on toffee. Rage said with the usual echo to his voice. Once again, many a jaw hit the floor as they saw the star butterflies up close. And next to the researcher girl for scale. Holy crap, they're huge. That thing's bigger than me. Neo cried out in horror. Heck, they look even bigger than a normal-sized person. John said, before freezing as he realized what he said, turning to see the glares from Neo, Yang, Roman, Emerald, and Cinder. And no offense, Neo, he said quickly. Offense taken. The former mute huffed. But that just makes the fact that they can fly even more unbelievable. With their size and the resilient nature of their wings and bodies, they must weigh at least 100 pounds. At least. The heaviest flying creature in our world is the great bustard bird that only reaches about 40 pounds at most. Penny exclaimed. Penny, we've already established it's no use trying to make sense of these creatures. Let's just calm down before you fry your processors. Weiss said, hugging her gynoid girlfriend's head to her chest. However, that just means that Australian is also so much bigger than we thought, if he can have multiple, and presumably a dozen or more, of these creatures on him at any time. Hazel pointed out. Not to mention immensely strong. If they're anywhere near as heavy or heavier than what Penny had estimated, yet he is still able to move around quickly with them and launch them at high speeds. Adam added. The butterflies were then seen flying away as a hunter followed them. Make him unimaginably harder to damage. In this armored mode, he'll also fling them at you like sharp spears, and then they return to his body, replenishing his ammunition, as it were. He's also able to absorb their energy. That's what gives him this glow that you can see through his chest and parts of his body, these orange lines of power. Very much like how Zinogre recharges from the Fulgur bugs. And while he is armored, while he's not too upset and thinking clearly, he can use the star butterflies to literally get down, Mr. President, him and block projectiles before they connect with him. Imagine being a Balmain or a gunner, launching something and seeing a butterfly leap out in front of it, blocking it and knocking it out the air. You'd be like, God damn it, but you'd also be like, well, that's pretty neat, isn't it? Because it is pretty neat. The host said as the Australian emerged to face the hunter as the star butterflies landed on the dragon, ready to be used as needed. Summer gasped at this realization. That would be amazing if your ammo returned to you. You'd never run out. Fighting Grim would be so much easier. She exclaimed in excitement. That would certainly be useful. I found myself running out of rounds in a fight against Grim on more than one occasion. Ironwood admitted. And admittedly, I could use something other than my semblance for combat, as I will find myself low on aura at some point as well. Glinda agreed. A greatsword-wielding hunter now faced the beast while trying to avoid the butterflies. Eventually, though, you'll push him further and he'll get very, very upset, and that's when he enters the mode of wings, as we'll call it. Rage began as, with a burst of energy and an anime power-up sound effect, insect-like wings popped up all over Australian. Now, instead of butterfly shells giving him armor, it's the wings that give him this adorning of a frill, and it gives him an appreciable boost to speed and power at the cost of defense. Now his physical assault will increase massively, and at this point, he will lose his protective side when it comes to his butterflies, and he will launch them at you as little mini insect-based suicide bombs that explode in fiery wrath when they get to you, and this hurts a lot. Like a lot. And there's a lot of butterflies, so you can imagine how intense this gets. The host warned as Australian attacked with more speed and power as the star butterflies chased down the hunter and exploded next to him. And many had stars in their eyes upon seeing this new wing form. Oh my gosh, it's the prettiest thing I've ever seen, Ruby exclaimed. She then felt heat resonating beside her to see Cinder glaring at her. I said, prettiest. You are beautiful, she said, kissing Cinder on the nose. You're lucky you're cute. Cinder huffed. All of those wings flowing all over him and shining different colors. It's amazing, Velvet said in awe. Now it really does look like a pretty princess from the fairy tales where princesses wear those big, puffy, flowing dresses, Nora said in amazement. And the orange glow works so good. It looks like he's covered in stained glass frills. It's so cool. Neo agreed. I agree with everything you all said. I love it, Kira said as the Cinnamon Trio hugged each other as they watched the creature in awe. Australian continued to leap throughout the area as its butterflies assaulted the hunter. When out of combat, though, Australian tends to be quite passive. It's not the most territorial. It likes to be a recluse in its grove in its cave and is happy to let, well, passers-by pass by. It only needs to be properly tickled. Tickled? Why did I go with tickled? I wanted a word like angered, and I went with tickled. If you tickle this dragon, it will get very, very upset. and it will go quite literally all out to destroy whatever irked its ire. The greatsword user explained as the beast lashed out at the hunter with its tail. There were quite a few laughs at the idea of tickling a monster until it decided to fight. Man, that's a pretty extreme reaction to a little tickling. And I had 7 sisters. That's half of what they did to me. John said. Then you should know. Tickling might as well be a form of torture. My stepsisters once tickled me until I passed out. Cinder said. Even if it was one of their less harmful torments against her, it was still most definitely an act of torment. I remember when I first unlocked my semblance was to get away from Yang tickling me. Ruby reminisced. You know, I always wanted a sibling growing up, but after hearing all of your stories, I'm thankful I'm an only child. Blake said. Estrelian now simply walked calmly through the grove, trusting the star butterflies to keep the hunter at bay. So, as you can see, yeah, this guy really is quite fun. He's an apex predator. He is. Let's be honest, an elder dragon, though not technically classified as one, and the Hunters Guild are very interested in them because, of course, they are very curious. Especially their symbiosis with the star butterflies that almost are like living little energy balls with wings. It will use the butterflies to hunt as well as fight, and, in exchange, it protects the butterflies as a sort of pseudo-host for them, both coming to the aid of the other. Again, very much Xenogre and its Fulgur Thunderbugs. And, most weirdly, Estrelian, for reasons unknown, like to randomly venture out of their solitude and appear in random territories at certain times of the season. Rage informed as the Estrelian more actively lashed out at the hunter with the aid of the butterflies. Well, that might put a damper on the whole no reason to fight it thing, Crow said. But don't forget, he did still say it had to be provoked into fighting and will let you pass by unharmed as long as you leave it alone. Winter pointed out. That may be true, but what happens if it wanders into a settlement and decides to stay there? Then anyone in that settlement is someone who won't leave its territory. That could prove to be a problem. Glinda countered. Estrelian was now chasing the hunter that had engaged it previously. And having said all this about Estrelian, now it's time for the kicker, the plot twist. You see, this monster is actually a juvenile. The greatsword user declared as the hunter leapt over a large mass of tree roots, only for Estrelian to plow through it and knock the hunter down, knocking his helmet off. A hammer-wielding hunter then ran in and leapt forward to strike the beast. Oh my good! A teenage boy's voice screamed overly dramatically before the hunter succeeded in smashing his hammer into Estrelian's head. They were briefly left speechless at this. So, this thing that can carry these giant, super heavy butterflies and throw them like throwing knives is still just a child. Summer asked in shock. It really is just like Gore Magala all over again. Cinder noted. Ooh, then I wonder what the adult looks like. Ooh, maybe it has its own giant butterfly wings to fly with. Or maybe it somehow gets the star butterfly's armor for itself and becomes the tankiest thing ever. Nora suggested. Or maybe it permanently gets all the butterfly wings poking out of it, so the star butterflies can stay in armor mode? Neo offered as well. Those are certainly interesting ideas, but we should likely wait until we hear more about them ourselves. Kira suggested. As the dragons staggered back from the hit, the hammer wielder set down some barrel bombs for a bow gunner to shoot. It is the baby form of an unknown elder dragon. Yeah, it really is the gore to a shagaru of its species. As of this point in time, the guild has never seen a fully matured Estrelian, or know if it grows into a completely separate monster not yet discovered. That is the theory, but it is just a theory, nothing concrete to go off of. But is that not a little bit exciting? A little, ooh, okay, full-on, massively powerful, upper-tier insect hybrid dragon elder dragon? Yes, please. Maybe question mark? That's something I think is very fun to imagine. Rage said excitedly as the barrel bombs exploded, only for Estrelian to emerge from the smoke unharmed. Oh! Well, okay then. So they don't even know if there's a different adult version. Maybe a grown-up Estrelian is just a bigger Estrelian. John said. I'm not sure that's much better. Considering how big it already is to hold several human-sized star butterflies on its body, if it got much bigger than that, it might grow to the size of small titans like Durambaros or even Gamma. Ren told him. But if that is the case and it is just like Gore, we can only imagine how much more powerful and dangerous this new version of the monster is. Ironwood added. To be fair, sir, Gore Magala was hostile before it becomes Shagaru Magala, so that behavior didn't change all that much. So, it's possible that whatever the adult form of Australian is, that it also retains Australian's peaceful nature. After all, even if they can hardly be considered the same creature anymore, most beings don't change their initial behavior all that much upon entering their mature stage. Winter pointed out. Excellent point, Winter. While it is true we should be wary of whatever creature Australian becomes, we should hardly be going up in arms against it before we even know what it is or if it's hostile. After all, if Gore becomes Shagaru, which is among the top tier of elder dragons in general, but certainly above most other non-giant elders, then it's possible Australian's adult form is in a similar standing of power. In which case, angering it without proper reasoning would be unwise. Ashbin agreed. A white Australian with dark bluish-purple butterflies was seen. There's a couple of other forms of Australian. There is Doom Australian, which is your classic take, the normal version of the monster turned up to 11 and different, yet equally striking colors and a more impressive and diverse skill set. That is this purple boy, and he is rather cool, too. We also have Arbiter Australian, which is a dragon twist on him, and he is also rather fantastic. Obviously, it's different flavors of butterfly that go with him. Though Arbiter gets a bit of a different physical form, too, as this one, when angered, gets its butterfly wing form. The wings are flaming wings, as they're much fierier butterflies, and it does look like he has a cloak of flames. And with how much he beats down this monoblows, you can kind of get an idea for just how powerful he can become. The host explained as a pair of monoblows fought to the death, only to draw the attention of a black and red Australian that effortlessly dispatched by this darker version of the monster. Coco whistled at this. That first one's not too bad. That while and purple go together pretty well, she said as she admired the first subspecies. It is quite striking. I wouldn't mind having one in Atlas, assuming they can withstand the cold. It's perfectly elegant, so it would be an excellent match for me. Weiss agreed. You know, it kind of reminds me of Frisia from Serpent Sphere Z. Neo noted. One, and then Arbiter was shown. Holy crap, this is so hardcore. Yang exclaimed in amazement. Ooh, its colors almost match me and Crimson perfectly. I need one. Ruby said, ignoring Weiss' lecture on the proper grammar of Crimson and I wouldn't mind one myself. Black isn't one of my main colors, too, but it still works pretty well for me. Not to mention, it's clearly a powerhouse. Cinder agreed, impressed by the creature's strength. Heck yeah, he wrecked that monoblows. Nora cheered. Gotta feel bad for the thing, honestly. Just wins the fight and claims some new turf, just to get wrecked by this thing showing up out of nowhere. Crow said. That's the way nature is sometimes, unpredictable and cruel, but always amazing. Winter said. Before Katana could even ask for their thoughts, Ruby jumped up. I love it. I love it so much. Its orange plating is so cool. I love its head shape, and its relationship with the star butterflies is incredible, and I love it when it enters wing mode. All the little insect wings on it is so beautiful. Ruby gushed over the creature. She then looked to Crimson and Amaryllis. Sorry, Crim, AM, but I really wish this guy was either mine or my mom's partner. Fighting with butterflies is so adorably precious, but super awesome as well. I'd feel like a fairy princess while fighting with it. She said with stars in her eyes as everyone else, even Summer, sweat dropped at her enthusiasm. The two monsters turned their heads in offense to this. Such betrayal, I can't believe you, Ruby. Crimson said through thought-speak in betrayal. It uses some butterflies. I control every freaking element there is. Amaryllis similarly complained. Still, I do have to agree with Ruby. It's already really cool on its own, but the star butterflies add to its beauty perfectly. It really does look like something that stepped out of a fairy tale, especially with the beautiful underground lake it lives in. I could definitely point to a fairy tale and say I've seen something like that before. Velvet said. By the way, what does the armor look like? He didn't really show it off. Coco asked. Oh, right. Here you go. Katana said, making a set of male and female Australian armor appear. And almost everyone went starry-eyed over them. Whoa. Okay, those are epic. Emerald said in amazement. I know, right? The helmets look like they're made of fire. Ilya agreed. You know, not to be that girl, but since Australian is a juvenile form, that means the armor is made out of either a baby or child. Blake pointed out, quickly killing everyone's vibe. Man. Blake, why did you have to bring that up? You're becoming more of a buzzkill than Weiss. Yang said, several others glaring at Blake in agreement. Katana, can you please add them on Remnant? I want one so bad, Ruby pleaded, before imagining herself fighting Grim alongside an Australian, a chibified Ruby riding on its back, firing at the Grim with crescent rows, while also wearing a tiara and pixie wings like a fairy princess. No, we can't risk that. We have no clue what an adult Australian looks like, or how powerful or dangerous they could be. Ironwood pointed out. The general has a point. As I said earlier, if multiple human-sized star butterflies can fit on them as a juvenile, then who knows how big they'll be as adults. They could become the size of Goliaths. If that's the case, even if they are peaceful, them passing through a human settlement could be devastating. Ran added. Plus, who knows if they gain some kind of crazy new power in their final stage, like explosions with every step or something? John added. That seems unlikely if we go by the Gore to Shagaru theory. Shagaru just became larger, although, even then, not by much. 3, stronger and much more proficient with the frenzy virus, so whatever the adult Australian is will most likely only have greater control of the star butterflies. Penny noted. There are certainly pros and cons to both. So, I suppose we'll have to leave it up to you, Katana. Glinda said. I think they're safe enough to add to Remnant. Without proper evidence, we have to assume the theory of Australian morphing into a new dragon like Gore to Shagaru is just speculation. And as long as you don't mess with Australian, it won't hurt you. So, congratulations, for those who want an Australian, you'll be able to go and get one. Katana said, to which many of the group cheered. So, what will we be seeing next then? Ashbin asked. Katana shuddered at this. This one's going to be a little different. It's not a large monster you'll be discussing, but you still better brace yourselves for what you're about to see from the Curio. She told them, starting the next video.